please consider liking and subscribing. One evening, my parents had to attend a social event, leaving me home alone for the first time. I was both excited and nervous as they drove away, leaving the house to me. The fading sunlight cast long shadows, and the creaks and groans of the old house seemed amplified in the silence. I decided to make the most of my newfound freedom and settled into the living room, flipping on the TV to break the eerie stillness. The program I was watching was just starting to get interesting when I heard it. Faint whispers coming from the hallway. At first, I dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me. But as I turned up the volume on the TV, the voices grew louder and more distinct. They were unmistakably real, and I could feel a shiver running down my spine. I muted the TV and strained to listen, realizing that the whispers were indeed coming from somewhere inside the house. It wasn't the house settling or the wind. It was as if someone, or something, was in the house with me. My heart pounded in my chest as I cautiously got up and crept down the dimly lit hallway. The whispers seemed to grow more intense, like a sinister chorus. I traced the sound to my parents' bedroom, and my hand trembled as I pushed the door open slowly. A chilling breeze hit my face, and the room felt strangely different. As if it wasn't my parents' bedroom at all, the whispers seemed to emanate from the very walls. I couldn't see anyone, but the sensation of being watched was overwhelming. Terrified, I backed out of the room and called my parents, my voice trembling as I begged them to come home immediately. They rushed back, their car's tires screeching to a halt in the driveway. As soon as they entered the house, the whispers stopped abruptly. They found nothing unusual. No signs of intruders or paranormal activity. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the house was hiding something that didn't want me there alone. It left me with a haunting sense of dread that would linger long after that night. One summer evening, my parents had to attend a late dinner party, leaving me alone in our dimly lit home. It wasn't the first time I had been home alone, but something about that night felt different. The house seemed to carry a heavy, suffocating silence. I decided to make the most of my solitude and curled up in the living room with a good book. A single lamp cast a warm, reassuring glow. I tried to lose myself in the story, but something kept nagging at me. An odd, unsettling feeling. My gaze kept drifting toward the walls, where the shadows seemed to move with a life of their own. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, but the shadows grew bolder. They twisted and contorted, creating grotesque, monstrous shapes that danced along the walls. Panic began to well up inside me as I watched these sinister shadows. They slithered and swirled, taunting me with their eerie, unnatural movements. I tried to shake it off, thinking it was just a product of my overactive imagination, but the unease refused to leave me. The shadows grew darker and more malevolent, forming shapes that defied the laws of physics. I felt as though they were closing in on me, encircling me with their ominous presence. Whispers, like the murmurings of distant spirits, filled the room. I couldn't take it any longer. I leaped from the couch and ran to my room, slamming the door shut and locking it behind me. But the shadows didn't stop at the threshold. They slithered under the door, invading my room like a creeping nightmare. I huddled in the corners, trembling with fear as the shadows continued to writhe and whisper. Their voices, a sinister chorus of malevolence, seemed to mock me. I dialed my parents' number, my fingers shaking so violently that I could barely press the buttons. They rushed back home, their footsteps echoing through the house. As soon as they entered, the shadows dissipated, retreating to their inanimate state. My parents found me cowering in my room, shaken and terrified. They found nothing unusual, no sign of the sinister shadows that had tormented me. They tried to comfort me, attributing it to a vivid imagination or a trick of the light. But I knew what I had witnessed was real, and it had shown me a terrifying truth about our home. That night, I slept with the lights on, too afraid of the darkness and the shadows it concealed. I couldn't explain what had happened, but I knew our home held a dark and haunting secret. One summer evening, my parents had to attend a family gathering, leaving me home alone. As they left, they reminded me to lock all the doors and windows and to avoid answering the doorbell for strangers. I nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and trepidation as they drove away. With the house to myself, I decided to make the most of it by taking a long, luxurious bath. The bathroom was large, with a massive mirror above the sink. I filled the tub, adding some fragrant bath salts, and sank into the warm water, feeling the stress of the day melt away. As I soaked, I couldn't help but admire my reflection in the mirror. The bathroom was bathed in a soft, calming light, and I looked at peace. But then something peculiar happened. My reflection began to change, and I watched in horror as my own face twisted into a grotesque, sinister grin. I gasped, and my heart raced as I realized that my reflection wasn't mimicking my movements anymore. It had taken on a life of its own. It raised a hand and pressed it against the glass, as if trying to break free from the confines of the mirror. The room grew icy cold, and I felt a paralyzing fear grip me as I watched my malevolent reflection. It seemed to taunt me, its sinister grin growing wider and more menacing. I tried to move, to escape the tub, but my limbs felt heavy and uncooperative. Desperation set in as I watched my reflection draw closer to the mirror's surface. It whispered incomprehensible words, its voice a chilling, guttural sound. I was trapped, held captive by the horrifying apparition in the mirror. Summoning all my strength, I finally managed to leap out of the tub, water splashing everywhere. I grabbed a towel and raced from the bathroom, my heart pounding in my chest. I stumbled to my phone and called my parents, my voice trembling as I begged them to come home immediately. They rushed back, and as soon as they entered the house, my reflection returned to normal, a perfect mirror image once more. They found nothing amiss in the bathroom, no signs of paranormal activity, but I knew what I had seen was real, and it had left me with an overwhelming sense of dread. From that day forward, I couldn't bear to look in mirrors, fearing that my sinister reflection would return, revealing a horrifying truth about our home that I couldn't explain but could never forget.